Sally Cleveland Stevenson Williams is the earliest of our known ancestors, whose name has, up until this point, held little meaning for many of us. Sally's accurate birth records are not yet known to us, but it is believed that she was born in or around 1858 in or near Hinds County, Mississippi. Sally lived her entire life within a small rural area where sharecropping was the way of life. For those of you that don't know, sharecropping was an arrangement whereby former slaves or farmers resided on the property of the plantation owners by tending to the crops in exchange for a place to stay and, under the best circumstances, possibly a few dollars and some food staples. It was just one step above slavery. It is believed that Sally was a Native American Indian, but we have not been able to associate her with a particular tribe. If Sally was born in Mississippi, it is very likely she was a member of the Choctaw tribe. The first record of Sally has been found in the census of 1880, where she is shown as a mulatto, aged 22. Sally Cleveland Stevenson Williams appears to have been married at least 3 times, thus the Cleveland Stevenson Williams name. She was married to Kossuth Cleveland, Calvin Stevenson, and Henry Williams. From these marriages, she had at least 10 children. 6 by Kossuth Cleveland, who was Wiley, also known as Will, Luella, Annie, Maddie, Lawyer, and Rosie Lee. 1 by Calvin Stevenson, who was Irene. 3 by Henry Williams, who was Dudley, also known as Judge, Merrill, known as Mel, and Jim. When Sally Cleveland Stevenson Williams died around the age of 42, her older children formed an informal bond to raise and ensure the well-being of the younger ones. That bond lasted throughout their lives. They worked together to help the younger ones, regardless of the state in which they lived.
Lola Parks, L.
Mayola Schaefer.
George Calhoun Jr.
Sarah William.
Lola Curtis, Wesley Curtis.
My parents is Annie and George Schaefer.
George Washington Calhoun and Mary Calhoun, better known as May. Everyone called her May. Everyone called her May. All of her children except Earl. Earl called her Mom.
Name was Jim Williams. And my mama's name Elizabeth.
Well, before 1946, we lived with Irene Ross, my mother's mother, and she lived with 2 of her daughters, 3 of her daughters, Ethel and Rebecca, Joanne's mother. But as far as who influenced my mother, she's the one that was she's the one that cracked the whip.
From my understanding, I was born in Mississippi.
Okay.
We moved to Indianapolis when I was 2 years old. All of Grandma's children went to Detroit with her. My mom was the only one that did not live in Detroit. So I grew up in Indianapolis, Indiana. Sonny Boy, Joanne, Lula Mae. I'm gonna leave out. Well, all of Sister's kids, all of Uncle Cliff's kids, all of Uncle Eugene's, and Aunt Rebecca. That was Joanne. Aunt May. Yeah, because that was gonna be Betty and Marilyn. That's all of the kids there. All the grandmother's children, because I knew them better than I knew the ones here in Indianapolis. So I was there every summer. Every summer, I would go to Detroit. Sometimes a couple of weeks or whatever, but I was there pretty much every summer to see Grandma and my cousins and things. Because Papa, that's gonna be Grandma's husband, he would come to Indianapolis. And Grandma went to see Mama because she was the only child that didn't live there. Okay?
Grew up in Black Bottom. You will have to go to Google Hastings Street, to the center of Black Bottom. And it was a fantastic time during that era because it was during the car revolution, where everyone who wanted a job, and I mean everyone, black, white, brown, whatever, could get a job. Joanne's mother, Rebecca, we call her Aunt Becca, worked at Honest Joe's on Hastings, way down. Gosh, I was so little, but I did go down there a few times begging. Now, Hastings was a booming commercial district. A lot of black-owned businesses. Nothing you couldn't get on Hastings. They had grocery stores, pawn shops, bars, restaurants. Uncle Charlie had a restaurant on Hastings and Brewster. And I must say that the family chipped in to help him get that restaurant. You didn't have battery-operated toys during that era. Mm-hmm. You had wind-up toys. No battery-operated toys. So we made skate box. Think of skating board. You know the little board they skate on with the wheels in the front and the back, the little plank? Put a 2x4 on top of that. Now put some handles on that. That's a skate box. We also played football. There was no grass in the inner city. We also played football on very hard dirt. We would go to the Belle Isle and we would play on grass. And I remember getting tackled on grass and thinking, this is nothing. We also had the Brewster Center that I went to all the time. They had a swimming pool. And they had skating once or twice a week. We also had the biggest skating rink in Detroit was called the Arcadia. And that was on the west side. We made all of our toys. We made parachutes out of handkerchiefs using a spark plug as the weight to bring it down. We made paper airplane. We made kites. We had great rock fights. Although I grew up in that environment, I never smoked a cigarette. I never had a drink till I was 21. I've never taken any kind of drugs. And that's all because of my mother.
Baby said I used to help babysit for Elijah's family, Cliff Ross family. That was the one I met first. And I helped her with her kids, Kenny Ross. And when he was little, I helped, go pick him up from school and help him, Kenny Ross. And Ed, we came in, see, I had my own child then. I didn't get a chance to do nothing for Ed too much because he was alone with my son, Lonzo. And Anthony I remember how when he was little, my son used to go pick him up and bring him to the house and, help him. It was so much. All of them are really babies. Lou Jean, family, Viola Ross, Cliff Ross, and all of them. Eli, I helped him when his last child, I think, passed away. Me being so older than all of them, they all got me to help babysit.
What's about what you remember about your dad?
My dad?
Yes, Jim.
Oh. My dad, he always around. And that's when I came back to Detroit, I stayed with my dad. Because my mama had left. And she came back and I stayed with my dad, so I stayed with him a long time. And stayed with, he helped me and everything. So I had to look up to him then.
It's like a village because on Mount Elliott, all my aunts and uncles were around most of the time, and my cousins, and some people we met that seemed to fit into the family, but we weren't related. Every Mother's Day, she would have like a photo shoot for each family. And then usually on her birthday, which was Memorial Day, we would all gather out the Belle Isle for her birthday, a reunion. A lot of that was going on. Then, we had to go to church, of course. And Eugene and Cliff came out of the service. They all hung out together, and my brother, and then they all found girlfriends that lived in the neighborhood. And that's I get when Viola and Cliff married, Eugene and Sidonia married. Sidonia's sister and Ruth married my brother, so it was and then Eli, who's just like the brother, he was married to a friend of they all had the girlfriends, and then they all got married. Viola, who lived in Annapolis, her mother would bring her to Detroit practically every summer, who Mayola Schaefer, who's Eddie's daughter, lived in Annapolis. Actually, I saw Mayola more than I saw, my Uncle Charlie. He had a family, and they were kind of distant. But at funerals and different things, we would see my cousins there. And as far as close cousins, I think Mayola was about my closest cousin. And my mother, she made all of us kind of get together. She said, go by and see your grandmother. Go by and see so-and-so and so-and-so. And then we had great aunts that lived on Hendricks, which wasn't too far from Mount Elliott. That was Matt and Rosie, and Uncle Charlie lived not too far from grandmother.
Eugene or Uncle Cliff would always take Mama, drive at least 50 or 60 miles toward coming back home. They would do that all the time. And then before they would turn around, we'd get out of the car and hug and stuff and say when we'd be back. But they always did that.
Amen. But I didn't get a chance to talk to Aunt Rosie too much, but Amen, I did. She learned me how to make sauce meat and sauce meat. And her grandkids came, and she stayed with me for a while, and then she left and went to Chicago, her granddaughter. Helped me a lot, and then she teach me different things about cooking and had a test with my cousin, making some kind of food, something Aunt Rena did. I met her a long time ago. I met her down south. I remember she come over and she sit on the side of the house. That was a long time ago. I was around about 6 or 7. We moved back, and then we moved to Michigan. And then when I moved to Michigan, I met Joanne's mother, Rebecca. She helped me a lot. She helped me help my daddy buy my school clothes and everything. And she was very nice. And she would take me around and meet the rest of my auntie and cousin. She'd take me around the family houses. She take me around a lot of places. Well, she take me a lot of different relative houses. And then that's the first one I met. And Mayola.
She worked us to death. Good thing. You know, she taught us how to keep the kitchen clean. She just taught us how to keep house, and she worked us to death. Loved us, but she worked us to death, okay? That's all I can tell you. Wash dishes, clean your room up, clean the yard up. Best grandmother, but I'm telling you. And you have to get
Well, she was a loving grandmother, but she was a what do you call it, disciplinarian as far, and always wanted you to do something, you know. Okay, if you go over there, she wanted you to iron her sheets or get that bevel polish and polish her furniture, and always something to do. She was something else, but it was good because she taught us a lot. You know, in fact, all her daughters more or less were something like her. You know,
unbelievable, brilliant. If she had some education, no telling what she could have inspired. To give you an example, she told me, take typing. But guys didn't take typing in those days because typing was considered kind of feminine, right? Now, had I taken typing, I don't know how far I could have gone because I had to get my wife to do the typing, and I had to pay people all through college to type my papers. I also said, money is like a garden. If you got some, it'll grow. So she gives you these little tips. I always save a dime out of every dollar. If she has some other idiosyncrasies, she would not loan money on a Monday. Don't loan money on a Monday, because if you do, you're going to be giving out money all week. When I come on a Monday, you better come on a Sunday. Okay. She would also tell you whatever's on your plate, you have to eat it. When we were at home, we had 2 or 3 things. But at Grandma's house, she had all kind of, the table was spread out, right? So you had a tendency to get too much. So when you think you're going to get up from a table that had food on your plate, you had another thing coming. She was very bright and direct. She was definitely in charge. And everybody knew that, and the parties all centered on 2714. That's where the party centered. Now, they would have regular parties, but these were like potlucks. People would bring over food. Of course, they had an ice cream maker. All the kids had to do the ice cream thing, churn that ice cream. And all kind of good food. And pork was a staple centered around Grandma. And she was in charge. People came to her for advice, and she gave it to them. They came to her for money, and she gave it to them. Ross has got good genes. And when I say Ross's guys, everybody came from grandma. Don't get it twisted.
Our children don't pick it up, it'll die. And I don't think that should happen. And they, get together and know one another like we knew one another. But even with mom living out of town, it was just like us living there because we were there every year. And I'm pretty sure there's second cousins that's right there in Detroit now that don't really mix and see one another. So it's going to get lost if we don't have the family reunion to pick it up. If they don't pick it up.
Not to stick together, not to go out and do anything, family, the husband and wife got to stick together and do. I can't name, what they do or whatever they do, but they stick together.
Try to be loving to your family and do what you're supposed to do and keep God in your life, stuff like that.
The mother is always going to be there. I think that in our family, I don't know of any mothers who were not really devoted to the family. It's the fathers that we have to concentrate on. Fathers have to be there, and they have to set the tone. Most important thing that to keep a family together is the father. I taught college for 45 years. And I would tell my students, guys, when you go fishing or whatever with your son, take your daughter too. Because if you don't take your daughter, Leroy will. Leave her home, leave her for Leroy. And they would crack up. And I meant that. Yeah, let's go, son. Let's do this, son. Let's do that, son. No. Let's go, all of us. You catch more fish, right?
They were all living pretty much in the same house on Joseph Campo. Cliff and Theola were there. My mother was there. Elijah and Marquette were probably there initially. And then some of them moved to the house on Mount Elliott. Because Grandma, what she would do, even though she was renting her house, she would rent her rooms out to other people. Entrepreneurship, if you will. After she left Mississippi, but she always had money.
Okay.
Thoughts always were around making sure you save some money, no matter what you have, that you save some from it.
My name is Dr. Dana T. Harper, and I am the proud mother of quadruplets. That is from oldest to youngest. We have Grant Lewis Harper, Gavin Lindy Harper, Sydney Grace Harper, and Bailey Ann Harper. 2 boys, 2 girls. I am the daughter of Ulysses Newkirk I and Teresa Ann Ross Newkirk. I eat an Ann. You'll hear that with my Bailey Ann. We want to keep that going. So yeah, Teresa Ann Ross. I am the granddaughter of Eugene Ross and Sidonia Ross. So it's been a journey. It has definitely been a journey. Many don't know that my husband and I experienced a loss in 2022. So we were pregnant with a little boy, and in April of 2022, we experienced a loss. So that was really hard for us. I'll say September of 2022, we found out we were pregnant. And we knew that it was just a single child, and we thought of names. We had a boy name, we had a girl name. And we went to the doctor, and they said, okay, you guys, what do you think about twins? And we're like, oh, great. And then they moved around a little bit more, and they said, uh-oh. And we, wait, uh-oh. What do you mean, uh-oh? And the doctor actually left the room. And she left the room, and she came back with a more senior physician. And he said, let's try this again. And so they went back to the ultrasound, and he said, yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 fetuses. My husband said, what? If he was not sitting down, I'm for sure he would have passed out. And I went completely numb. It was a complete shock. Many people thought it was IVF. We did not do IVF. It was God. It was God. Because this was our 4th time trying. And God said, I'll take care of you for each time that you try. And we are now blessed to have our 4 children, whom we proudly call the Heartbeats, the 4 Heartbeats. Our last name is Harper, so we played on that. So we have our 4 Heartbeats, Grant, Gavin, Sydney, and Bailey. So yes, and they are now 17 weeks old. So I guess I can say former educator, but I will always be an educator, lifelong educator. And so one thing I will always learn is that the difference between a child from the urban city and a child from the suburban city is exposure. And that plays a hand as well as with family. And, if you don't expose them to these experiences, expose them to family they will never know. So I think having experiences such as the family reunion, or bringing them around their grandparents, bringing them around their cousins, having them have opportunities to engage with family, to see how strong it is, plays a huge role. I'm so excited to have opportunities to introduce my children to their cousins and their aunts and their uncles. We moved my mother here to Michigan. This is her first to North Carolina. This is her first set of grandchildren, and she went from 0 to 4 real quick. So she's here. She was just with me last night, helping me with bath time and telling them stories and letting the children know, even at this early age, how they got their name, so they can carry those stories on to their children. But exposing them to experiences and opportunities to engage and connect with family, I think is so important, and making sure that bond stays strong throughout their years. I'm married to my amazing husband, Gerald Harper, and he's Gerald Lewis Harper. And I think it's important to share that all of the quad's middle names are tied to family. So, Grant Lewis is my husband's middle name, but it's also his father's first name. So we wanted to keep that. And then Gavin Lindy is my husband's father's middle name. And then we have Sydney Grace. Sydney is my paternal great aunt, and Grace is my paternal grandmother. So Sydney Grace is named after family from my paternal side. And then Bailey Ann, and as everyone should know, is my mother's middle name, and she's the oldest of the 7. So, of course, there's Teresa Ann, Beverly Ann, Shirley Ann, Margaret Ann, Monica Ann. And sometimes this could be Virgil Ann. We don't know. We just leave that to the imagination, okay? But we wanted to keep that Ann legacy going. Said if we have 4 healthy children, we're bringing 4 healthy children home. And we brought them home, and it has been a whirlwind ever since. But we are 100% a team. What I lack, he supplements. If I am rocking, he's making bottles. If I'm putting to sleep, he's changing diapers. We are working together. We are blessed to have a village. We have family. We have, people who have come in to help us when we need just an opportunity to rest. Gerald and I work very well together because we know that, once again, this is our legacy. And Gerald does have 2 older daughters that he brought into the marriage who we love very much. And so we are, this new life for us, we are taking it a day at a time. That's all we can do. But I wouldn't want to do it with anyone else but him. I think it's so important that why we're doing things like this, these oral histories. We call Joanne our storyteller, our historian, because if I have a question, I know I can always come to her. But I want to make sure that she's also passing this forward, and our other family members are passing this forward, because once they leave, we want the story to continue. And so having these opportunities, I think, are amazing. I don't want to always see my family at funerals. I don't want to do that, even though it's always good to see them. I'll see my cousins like, Javon, and I'll see Leah, and I'll see Nicholas, and all of them, because we're closer in age. But I don't want to always see them at funerals. So I'm excited that they're having a family reunion and everyone's coming together, and we can continue these stories. And now that we're parents, we can pass it on. And they're crying in the background. We can pass this on to our children, to keep the sustainability of our family's name, because I think it's so important. That's one thing my mother always told me, that the only thing that you'll ever have for the rest of your life is your name. And so making sure that it continues to be strong and it holds value and holds weight is so important. So thank you for doing this, and thank you for including not just our elders, but also those who will continue on our legacy.
Hi, my name is Brianna Crowell, and my fiance Raymond and I have two little ones, Anaya Grace and Amari DeMarco. My parents are Douglas Crowell and Tamala Crowell. My grandparents are Jacqueline Crowell and Lloyd Calhoun. We found out that we were expecting our first child, our daughter Anaya, back at the end of, towards the middle of 2021. And we had her January 26th of 22. And just a few short months later, we found out that we were expecting our first son. And he came December 8th of 2022, so they call them Irish twins. And it's definitely a challenge, but it's something very, I would say, rewarding, because being a first-time mom and then feeling that guilt at times that I wasn't able to give my daughter, as much attention as I feel like she requires and deserves, it kind of really got to me. But honestly, it's really been an adjustment, and I'm still adjusting, and so is Ray. But I just recently started back working from home, which is a joy, because I get to be with them in their first years of growing. I get to see all their milestones, and I just really consider it a privilege, even when the days are frustrating and tiresome, because, oh my goodness, I have stories for days. But our children are like literally the best thing that's happened to us, and I would not trade being a mom for anything in the world. When they say it takes a village to raise kids, they were not lying. If it hadn't been for my parents and, Ray's mom and some of his other family helping out, stepping in when we needed, I don't know. I probably will be just crying somewhere. But no, it's not that bad. But it does take a village. My parents are always going above and beyond to do things, and every other day or every week it's always, I got the kids this, I got the kids that, or can we see our grandbabies? Of course. You want me to send them, first day shipping express? What do you want? But it was a time where my daughter started walking up the stairs, and I didn't know it. I didn't get to see it first. Ray and my mom actually saw it because we were dropping the kids off, and I had sprained my ankle. So I was sitting in the car, and Ray was like, Brianna's going to be so mad that she missed this. And he didn't even tell me about it. I think I found out from my mom. So for sure, a village does definitely make a difference. And I don't know where we would be if we didn't have it. My granddad, he passed while I was young, but we were really close. And I miss him dearly to this day. I always have flashbacks of going to his house. He was a sweets man. He loved cakes, candies, anything sweet, you name it. My granny, watching her, we spent a lot of time with her when we were younger. And of course, when we get older, we go into our own lives. We have our own things that we're doing. So, we try to get time in when we can. She was strong. She raised four kids. She worked in the plant, and she didn't take any mess. So that's definitely Miss Jackie for you. But I'm glad that she's still here with us to share her stories and give advice and encouragement as well. First off, keeping God first with everything. Don't ever feel like you're in anything alone. If you need help with anything, do not hesitate to reach out. When you get older, I always tell people, once you are out of mom and dad's house, of course you can always, ask them for help and things like that. But this adult world, it is not all peaches and sunshine, okay? It's going to be obstacles. You don't always have to bump your head first to learn from a mistake. You don't always have to make a mistake. Just don't feel like you have to hide anything. That's what, like I said, family is for. They're there to help you and, get you through some things, because as our family, we have been through some things, and we wouldn't have gotten through it without God and each other.
One of the things I've noticed in some of the pictures I've seen is that, your dad is not a person that smiles a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that he smiles all the time when he's with those grandkids.
Yes.
So would you tell us a little bit about how that makes you feel when you see him doing that, and your mom too?
Oh my gosh. It just makes me feel a lot of joy to know that my babies have that type of love in their life. It lets me know that, if anything was to ever happen to myself or their dad, they will be taken care of. I tell my dad all the time, I say, Dad, I feel like you treat the grandbabies better than you treat your kids sometimes. They get to get away with everything. And, I was actually talking to my mom not long ago. When we started, having our kids and everything, it just brought a different type of joy and light to her life. And I am just so grateful for that. They always say children are definitely a blessing from God. So I'm like, they definitely came at the right times to bless our family and get through some rough patches. And, I love that for them.